The storm had already swallowed the horizon when the human soldier saw her. At first, she looked like debris, something torn loose from a crashed pod or a piece of alien wreckage half buried in the black sand. The wind howled across the dead moon, carrying ice crystals that stung exposed skin and scraped against his visor, warning him to turn back, warning him this place killed the careless. But the soldier slowed anyway, his boots sinking into the cold ground as his scanners flickered with weak biological readings. Barely above zero, fragile like a fading heartbeat, he knelt, brushing aside ash and frozen dust, and that was when he saw her face, alien unmistakably so. Her skin carried a soft luminescent hue like moonlight trapped beneath flesh, veins faintly glowing as if struggling to keep warmth alive. Her eyes were closed, lashes frosted white, lips cracked from cold, and she was shaking not violently, but with the shallow tremors of someone who had already surrendered to exhaustion. She had nothing, no armor, no translator band, no insignia, no weapons, not even proper clothing, only torn fabric clinging to her frame, shredded by wind and sharp stone, leaving her exposed to a world that had no mercy. The soldier swallowed, something tight forming in his chest that had nothing to do with fear. This sector was forbidden, declared a dead zone under interstellar law, abandoned after the last battle tore the moon apart. No rescues allowed, no survivors expected. Any presence here was meant to be erased by time and vacuum, and yet here she was alive. He reached out slowly, afraid sudden movement might finish what the cold had started. His gloved fingers hovered near her neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, faint but stubborn, like a star refusing to go dark. She gasped suddenly, eyes fluttering open, pupils dilating as they focused on the towering armored figure above her. Panic flooded her expression instantly. Her body tried to retreat but failed, strength long gone. Her mouth moved, words spilling out in a trembling alien tongue. Broken, desperate, layered with fear so raw it sliced through the language barrier. The soldier didn't understand the words, but he understood the emotion. Terror, disbelief, shame, and something else beneath it all, resignation. He raised both hands slowly, palms open, visor retracting so she could see his face, scarred, tired, human. "It's okay," he said softly, even though she couldn't understand him. His voice carried a tone he hadn't used since before the war. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her eyes searched his face, flicking over his features as if trying to decide whether this was real or a final hallucination before death. She whispered again, voice cracking, and this time tears welled up, freezing halfway down her cheeks. The soldier pulled off his outer cloak without thinking, wrapping it gently around her shoulders, insulating her trembling body from the wind. His hands lingered just long enough to steady her shaking before pulling back, giving her space. Her breathing slowed slightly, confusion replacing panic. She clutched the cloak with weak fingers, pressing it against herself as if afraid it might vanish. And when she looked up again, there was gratitude there, fragile and cautious, like a wounded creature unsure whether kindness was a trap. Behind them, the sky flickered, distant flashes of orbital fire illuminating the clouds for half a second at a time. Warships. The soldier's jaw tightened, his mission log burned in his memory. Recon only, no engagement, no interference, extraction in 20 minutes. Any deviation punishable under military law, especially contact with protected alien bloodlines, especially princesses. He didn't know that yet, not fully, but something in her posture, in the delicate markings along her collarbone barely visible beneath the torn fabric, stirred an old briefing file deep in his mind, one he had skimmed years ago and never expected to matter. Royal sigils, stripped away, survival markings hidden beneath skin. If command found out, this wasn't just desertion, it was treason. Her gaze followed his as he looked toward the sky, fear returning sharper this time. She shook her head weakly, whispering urgently, hands trembling as she gestured toward the darkness beyond the rocks, toward where the battlefield scars disappeared into shadow. Whatever had happened to her, whatever story had stripped her of everything, it was still hunting her. The soldier exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the galaxy settle on his shoulders. Every lesson drilled into him screaming to walk away, to report the sighting, to let the law decide her fate. But when he looked back at her, wrapped in his cloak, eyes pleading without words, barely alive in a place meant only for ghosts, the law felt distant, abstract, cold, and she felt real. He activated his beacon, not the command channel, but a private signal, short range only, masking its origin. His heart pounded as the device hummed to life. He crouched beside her again, lowering himself to her level, meeting her gaze. "I don't know who you are," he said quietly, voice rough, "but I'm not leaving you here." Her eyes widened, something fragile and hopeful igniting behind them for the first time. A spark that pushed back the cold. Far above, a warship adjusted its orbit, scanners sweeping the surface, the hunt tightening its grip, and on a dead moon where no rescues were allowed, destiny had already chosen a side. The soldier lifted her carefully, every movement slow and deliberate, as if the wrong touch might shatter what little strength she had left. Her body was light in his arms, far too light, a weight that spoke of hunger, fear, and days spent running instead of living. She stiffened at first, breath hitching as she was carried, instinct screaming danger. But when his grip remained steady and gentle, she relaxed just enough to lean against his chest, her head resting against the cold armor that was now the warmest thing she had known in far too long. The wind screamed louder as he moved toward the rocks, sheltering her from the open plain. His HUD flared with warning symbols, thermal loss critical, unidentified scans approaching, time slipping away faster than he liked. She murmured again in her language, words tangled with exhaustion. And though he still couldn't understand them, he caught the rhythm, the way her voice rose and fell as if telling a story she had been holding inside for too long. When they reached the shadow of the cliffs, he set her down gently, bracing her back against stone that blocked the worst of the wind, then activated a portable heat field, a soft shimmer forming around them like an invisible cocoon. She gasped as warmth spread, fingers curling into the cloak tighter, eyes fluttering closed for a heartbeat before opening again. Fear still there, but weaker now, dulled by relief. He removed his helmet fully this time, placing it beside him so she could see his face clearly, so she would know he was staying. The scars along his jaw and brow caught the faint light, each one a reminder of battles survived and people lost. She studied him in silence, eyes tracing those scars as if they were a map, and when she finally spoke again, her voice was steadier, softer. He tapped the translator at his wrist, coaxing it awake, cycling through known dialects. Most returned nothing but static. Then a flicker of sound broke through, distorted but recognizable. "Please," she whispered. The word cracked but clear. His breath caught. He nodded immediately, leaning closer. "You're safe," he replied, even though he wasn't sure it was true yet. "I won't let them hurt you." Her eyes filled again, not with panic this time, but with something heavier, grief, and when she spoke, the translator struggled, skipping pieces, but enough came through to hurt. "They took everything," she said, voice trembling. "My ship, my guard, my name." He clenched his jaw, a familiar anger stirring, the kind that had driven him through fire before. "Who did?" he asked quietly. She looked away, toward the distant glow in the clouds, fear sharpening again. "The law," she whispered, as if the word itself might hear her. His pulse spiked, every warning from training flaring at once, enforcement fleets, sanctioned hunts, bloodline seizures disguised as justice. He had heard rumors, never seen proof until now. "They said my existence threatened balance," she continued, tears slipping free. "That my death would prevent war." A bitter laugh escaped him before he could stop it, low and humorless. "That's what they always say." She turned back to him sharply, surprised, searching his face for mockery, finding none, only a shared understanding of being used by forces too large to fight alone. A distant rumble rolled across the ground, closer now, scanners sweeping wider. The warship above was narrowing its search. He checked his beacon, the private signal pulsed once, a reply imminent. Someone had heard him, but that also meant time was nearly gone. She noticed the change in him, the tension returning to his shoulders, and panic flared again. Her hands grabbed his arm weakly, claws barely extending in fear. "You must go," she said urgently, the translator glitching but carrying the meaning. They will kill you for this? He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. They already tried. For a moment, something shifted between them. An unspoken understanding, two survivors standing on the edge of the same abyss. She swallowed, voice dropping. If they find me, they will not take me alive. He shook his head slowly, firm. Not happening. The ground trembled again, closer this time, dust falling from the rocks above, and the sky lit up briefly as the warship's engines flared. She flinched, pressing closer to him without thinking, and he adjusted the heat field, shielding her as best he could, just stayed there, solid and present, letting her cry against him until the glow beneath her skin dimmed again. I was alone, she whispered finally, voice barely there. For so long. He swallowed hard, throat tight. Not anymore. She looked up at him then, really looked, as if seeing beyond armor and scars to the person beneath. Why? She asked softly. Why help me? He didn't answer right away, because the truth was complicated and simple all at once, because it wasn't about orders or heroics or destiny. It felt wrong to leave you, he said at last, honest and unpolished. Something shifted in her expression. A fragile warmth blooming where despair had lived. Above them, engines roared louder, the warship repositioning, tightening its net, and deep within the moon, ancient fractures groaned under the renewed stress of power and pursuit. She leaned closer to him again, trusting now in a way that terrified him more than any battle. And as the hunt closed in, the mystery of who she truly was, and what her survival meant for the galaxy, began to unfold, slowly and inexorably, like fate itself awakening. The silence after the drones passed felt heavier than the hunt itself, like the moon was holding its breath, waiting to see what choice would be made next. The soldier slowly eased them out of the crevice, every sense stretched tight, his eyes tracking the sky, the rocks, the shadows that could hide death or salvation. She stayed close now, not out of weakness but trust, her hand never leaving his sleeve, as if letting go might erase him, might return her to being hunted prey instead of someone worth saving. Then his wrist unit vibrated again, a low pulse against his skin. He froze, heart slamming hard enough to hurt. She felt it immediately, her glow flickering brighter in response to his spike of fear. What is it? She whispered. He didn't answer yet, eyes locked on the display as encrypted data scrolled across it. The private channel he had activated earlier should have been silent by now. Extraction aborted, command ignoring him. That was how this always went, but the signal wasn't command. The encryption pattern was old, almost forgotten, a human military signature no longer officially in use, decommissioned after the early border wars. His breath went shallow. A voice crackled through the calm, distorted but unmistakably human. Scout unit, this is Warship Atlas. His blood ran cold. Atlas had been declared lost 5 years ago, vanished beyond contested space, rumored destroyed after refusing a direct order during a civilian evacuation. The kind of rumor soldiers whispered about in barracks at night, never out loud. You're off-grid, the voice continued calmly, and standing on protected bloodline ground. The alien girl stiffened instantly, eyes widening, the light beneath her skin surging in sharp, frantic patterns. They know, she whispered, fear flooding back. They will kill us both. The soldier raised a hand gently, grounding her again, though his own hands were shaking now. Wait, he murmured, eyes fixed on the comm. They already know. He keyed the mic, voice low but steady. Atlas, identify intent. There was a pause, long enough to feel deliberate. Then the reply came softer, almost careful. Rescue. Her breath caught, the word hitting her like something unreal, something too fragile to trust. The soldier's jaw clenched, suspicion flaring. Atlas is listed as destroyed. A faint chuckle crackled through the static, bitter and familiar. So are a lot of things the law doesn't like. Above them, the sky split with light as the pursuing warship adjusted course sharply, engines flaring, unaware that something much larger was slipping into the moon's shadow. The ground vibrated differently now. Deeper, slower, the unmistakable tremor of a capital-class vessel moving under cloak. The alien girl swayed slightly, one hand clutching her chest as if something inside her had shifted violently. He caught her before she fell, lowering her carefully against the rock, panic flaring again. "Hey!" he whispered urgently. "Stay with me." She shook her head weakly, eyes glowing painfully bright now. "It's not the cold," she gasped. "It's the oath." "Oath?" he repeated, fear threading through the word. "My bloodline is bound," she said through clenched teeth, light beneath her skin forming sharp geometric patterns now, rigid and burning. "If a human warship shelters me, the law will declare total war." The twist landed like a physical blow. "You're a trigger," he said slowly, understanding crashing into place. "Not just a symbol." She nodded, tears slipping free as the glow intensified. "They didn't hunt me because I was weak," she whispered. "They hunted me because if I live, treaties die." The Atlas calm crackled again, urgency creeping into the voice now. "Scout, you're running out of time." The pursuing warship roared overhead, scanners sweeping violently, the cloak flickering as his arm curling protectively around her shoulders. In that moment, surrounded by cold stone and hunted by the law, she felt something she hadn't felt since before the battle that destroyed her life. Safety. He leaned in, voice low, urgent. "When I say run, you run where I point. Don't look back." She nodded, though fear still trembled through her. His comm unit buzzed softly, the reply finally coming through. Extraction window reduced, hostile presence confirmed, abort recommended. He silenced it without responding, heart pounding, eyes lifting toward the sky. The law had already chosen her fate, but he was done letting fate decide alone. The ground shook again, not from distant fire this time, but from something closer, heavier, the kind of vibration that crawled up through stone and bone alike. The soldier felt it through his boots, through his spine, through the instincts that had kept him alive longer than most. Search drones. He could almost hear them already, the faint mechanical whine cutting through the wind, methodical and patient. Machines that did not care about mercy or stories or fear. The alien girl stiffened in his arms as if she sensed them too. Her breath quickened, pupils widening until the faint glow in her eyes brightened, casting soft light against his armor. She whispered his language again, broken and urgent. "They are close." He nodded once, already moving, scanning the rock wall behind them, fissures, shadows, old impact scars from the battle years ago. This moon had been torn apart and stitched back together by violence, and sometimes violence left hiding places. He guided her deeper into the shadows. Heat field dimmed. Beacon shut down completely. Every active signal a risk now. Her body trembled as he moved, not just from cold or fear, but from something deeper, something coiled tight inside her like a wound that refused to close. As they settled into a narrow crevice, her hand gripped his forearm again, tighter this time, claws extending just enough to pierce fabric. She froze instantly, eyes widening in horror as she realized what she had done. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I didn't mean to." He shook his head gently, covering her hand with his own, grounding her. "You're not hurting me," he said quietly, and meant more than the words. The drones passed overhead, shadows sliding across the rocks, beams of pale light sweeping back and forth. Each pass felt like a blade drawn slowly across their hiding place. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, breathing shallow, and as the seconds stretched, her whisper returned, softer now, almost confessional. "I was not always like this," she said, translator struggling but managing. "I was raised to command fleets." His eyes flicked down to her in surprise, though he stayed still. "Command?" he echoed softly. "Yes?" she continued, voice steadier as if the memory gave her strength. "I was taught law before I could walk, strategy before I could dream. They called me a bridge between worlds." Something cold settled in his gut. The markings, the hunt, the secrecy. It all aligned too well. "A princess," he murmured, more to himself than to her. She flinched at the word, shoulders tensing. then slowly nodded, shame and grief twisting together on her face. A title I was stripped of the moment I refused to be a weapon? The soldier's jaw tightened, anger simmering low and dangerous. They wanted you to start a war. They wanted me to end one, she replied, bitterness sharp now. By dying. The words hung between them, heavy and unforgiving. She lifted her head, eyes meeting his, glowing brighter in the darkness. And for the first time he noticed the patterns beneath her skin shifting subtly, lines of light forming and dissolving like living constellations, responding to her emotions. My people carry memory in our bodies, she said quietly. Fear makes it surface. He watched, transfixed despite himself. You're glowing. She gave a sad, almost embarrassed smile. It is how they tracked me. That explained everything, the scanners, the precision, the relentless hunt. A sharp tone echoed nearby, one of the drones adjusting course, closer, too close. Her breath hitched, light beneath her skin flaring instinctively, and he reacted without thinking, pulling her against him, pressing her face into his chest. His armored hand cupping the back of her head. Stay still, he whispered. Stay with me. The drone hovered for a long moment, beams slicing across the crevice entrance, light spilling over his armor, over her cloak, over the faint glow she could not fully suppress. His muscles locked, ready to fight, to die if needed. Then the beam shifted away, the drone moving on, the sound fading into the wind. She sagged against him as if something inside her had finally given out. A quiet sob shaking her shoulders, the kind that came from holding too much in for too long. He didn't pull away, didn't rush her. Weapons charged, ready to cleanse the surface entirely. The soldier looked down at the alien princess, this living fault line between peace and annihilation, and felt the weight of the galaxy crush in around his lungs. Saving her didn't just break the law, it rewrote the future. She looked up at him, fear and resolve warring in her glowing eyes. If you leave me, she said softly, they will say balance was preserved. And if I don't? He asked quietly. She swallowed, voice steady despite the pain. Then fate burns. The Atlas decloaked above them in a silent, impossible sweep, its massive silhouette blotting out the stars, weapons dark, shields raised. A warship choosing defiance over obedience. The enemy vessel reacted instantly, alarms screaming across the sky. The soldier made his choice. He lifted her into his arms again, turning toward the rising light of the Atlas, heart pounding with fear, purpose, and something dangerously close to hope. Atlas, he said into the calm, voice unbroken. I have the princess. The reply came without hesitation. Then welcome to the war no one was supposed to fight. The moment the Atlas fully revealed itself, the sky became a battlefield. Alarms wailed across the void, the pursuing warship snapping to combat posture as if stung, its weapons blooming with hard white light, energy signatures flaring so violently the moon's surface shuddered in response. The soldier ran, boots pounding against fractured stone, each step measured despite the chaos. The alien princess clutched against him as if the universe itself were breaking apart beneath her skin. Her glow spiking wildly now, reacting to the warship above like a living beacon. Atlas, he breathed into the calm. They're locking weapons. Confirmed? Came the calm reply. Too calm for what was unfolding. Multiple fleets responding to treaty breach alerts across 3 sectors. 3 sectors. His stomach dropped, the scope of it finally hitting. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a spark, and sparks in dry galaxies became infernos. Above them, the first shot was fired, a lance of energy carving through space, slamming into the Atlas forward shields. The impact sent a shockwave rolling across the moon, knocking the soldier off balance. He fell hard, twisting instinctively to shield her, pain flaring through his shoulder as they skidded across rock and ash. She cried out, not from impact but from something deeper, the markings beneath her skin erupting into blinding patterns now, ancient symbols burning bright as if awakened by the violence. I can feel them, she gasped, eyes wide with terror and awe. The councils, the bloodlines, they all know. The Atlas returned fire, controlled and devastating. Its cannons roaring silently as beams tore into the enemy vessel, shields collapsing in a cascade of sparks, debris raining like artificial meteors. But more signatures appeared on his HUD. Too many, too fast. Fleets translating in from hyperspace, alien and human alike, all responding to the same impossible truth. The law had been broken, a protected princess lived, and humanity had chosen to shield her. The soldier staggered to his feet, clutching her tighter as tremors rippled through the ground. The moon cracking further under the stress of orbital bombardment, fissures opening like scars. "Atlas," he shouted, "I need extraction now." "Negative." The reply came, strained for the first time. "The moon's gravity well is destabilizing. We can't beam you through the interference." Another blast struck nearby, rock exploding outward, heat washing over them. She screamed, fingers digging into his armor. And suddenly the glow around her changed, no longer chaotic, but focused, deliberate. The symbols beneath her skin aligning into a single blazing sigil. The air around them vibrated, reality bending subtly, painfully. "What are you doing?" he yelled over the roar, fear laced with awe. She looked at him, tears streaming. But her voice was calm now, resigned, powerful. "What I was born to do." The sigil flared, and the ground beneath them stabilized, fractures sealing themselves with molten light, the tremors easing just enough for the Atlas targeting systems to recalibrate. Across the system, sensors screamed, ancient protocols awakening, dormant alliances snapping to attention. On distant worlds, rulers looked up from their thrones as alerts flashed red. The princess lives. The human shields her. Treaties nullified. Mobilize. Back on the moon, the enemy warship hesitated, its targeting drifting as if confused, as if something older than law had reached out and seized its will. The Atlas seized the opening, a final devastating strike tearing through the enemy's core, the vessel breaking apart in a silent blossom of fire and debris. But victory felt hollow. More fleets were coming, dozens, hundreds, the galaxy responding not to violence, but to implication. The soldier dropped to one knee, breath ragged, holding her as the sigil dimmed, her body sagging heavily now, strength draining fast. "You'll kill yourself," he whispered fiercely, fear clawing at his voice. She smiled faintly, exhausted. "I already died once," she said softly, "when they took my name." The Atlas hangar doors opened above them, a beam of light cutting through smoke and dust. Finally clear, finally stable. "Now," the comm barked, "move." He didn't hesitate, sprinting into the light as the beam wrapped around them, lifting them from the broken moon just as another wave of ships tore into orbit. As they rose, he saw it, the wider picture unfolding across his HUD, entire regions lighting up with conflict markers, ancient borders dissolving, old grudges reigniting. All because one soldier chose not to walk away. Inside the Atlas hangar, the beam released them gently, medics rushing forward before stopping short at the sight of her. At the living sigils fading beneath her skin, the ship's captain stepped forward, eyes grave, reverent, afraid. "She's alive," the captain said quietly, more to the galaxy than to the room. The soldier tightened his grip as alarms continued to howl across the fleet network, knowing with absolute certainty that the war had already begun, and that there was no turning back now. Write Part 6, around 800 words, build toward climax. Make it emotional plus powerful. The Atlas shook as it surged back into the void, engines roaring with restrained fury, the hangar lights flickering as power was rerouted again and again. The ship bracing itself against a galaxy that had suddenly remembered how to hate. The soldier stayed on his knees where the beam had left him, arms locked around the alien princess as if letting go would tear something essential loose from both of them. Medics hovered uncertainly, trained hands hesitating in the presence of something that felt larger than flesh and blood. Her glow had dimmed to a faint pulse now, each breath shallow, labored, the sigils beneath her skin retreating like dying stars. "Hey!" he whispered urgently, pressing his forehead against hers. "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then slowly locking onto his face, a weak smile touching her lips. "You did not leave," she murmured, translator barely keeping up. "Not a chance," he replied, voice breaking despite himself. The captain approached at last, boots heavy against the deck, the weight of command etched into every line of his face. "We are being hailed by multiple councils," he said quietly, human and alien alike. The soldier didn't look up. "Tell them to wait." A pause followed, long and dangerous. Then the captain nodded. "As you wish." Around them, the Atlas crew moved with grim efficiency, shields flaring, weapons charging. The ship becoming what it had always been meant to be, a line drawn in the dark. The princess's fingers twitched weakly against the soldier's armor. "The sigil," she whispered, fear creeping back in. "It will return." He swallowed hard. "What happens then?" She took a shaky breath, gathering what little strength she had left. "Then they will have no choice," she said softly. "They will either recognize my claim or erase my bloodline completely." His heart pounded painfully. "Claim," he echoed. "Yes," she said, eyes brightening faintly despite the pain. "Not as a victim." She coughed, a shudder running through her, and he tightened his grip, panic surging. "As a ruler," she finished. The words hit him harder than any blast. Across the hangar, the captain stiffened, understanding spreading through the crew like wildfire. Whispers rippling outward, a living heir, a sovereign without a throne, protected by humans. The galaxy would never accept that quietly. The Atlas lurched violently as a barrage struck its shields, alarms screaming now, red lights bathing the hangar in urgent pulses. "Multiple enemy fleets have arrived," a voice shouted over the comm. "They are demanding surrender of the protected bloodline." The soldier finally looked up, eyes burning. "And if we refuse?" The captain met his gaze, unflinching. "Then we stand alone." The princess shifted weakly, her hand finding the soldier's chest, fingers pressing there as if she could feel his heart racing beneath the armor. "You should let me go," she whispered, pain and resolve intertwined. "One life is not worth a galaxy." He shook his head fiercely, tears threatening now. "You don't get to decide that alone." Her eyes softened, something ancient and gentle stirring behind them. "You have already given me more than they ever did." Outside the hangar, space itself seemed to tremble as fleets formed battle lines, ancient enemies aligning out of fear and necessity. The balance of power bending toward chaos. The Atlas main viewport activated, filling the hangar with a breathtaking, terrifying sight. Warships by the hundreds, weapons hot, flags of long-dead treaties fluttering in signal code. The galaxy had come to judge. The princess inhaled sharply, the faint glow beneath her skin surging again, brighter than before, the sigils re-emerging with terrifying clarity, the deck beneath them humming in response. The captain stepped back instinctively, awe and fear warring on his face. "She's activating," someone whispered. The soldier pulled her closer, voice cracking openly now. "Please don't burn yourself out." She smiled up at him, tears sliding free. "This is not burning," she said gently. "This is remembering." The sigils flared outward, not violently, but steadily, harmonizing with the Atlas systems, ancient protocols unlocking. Systems the ship had never known it carried awakening all at once. Across the fleets, alarms shifted tone, recognition codes flashing, bloodline verification impossible to deny. A hush fell over the hangar as every incoming transmission cut out at once. The galaxy was listening. The princess lifted her head, strength returning just enough, voice carrying far beyond her fragile body, echoing through channels that should not exist. "I live," she declared, "and I choose." The words reverberated across space, through hulls and hearts alike. The soldier felt it then, the truth settling deep in his bones. This was no longer about rescue or law or even war. This was about what came after. And as the sigils reached their brightest point, the Atlas standing defiant at the center of a trembling galaxy, he held her tighter than ever, knowing the final moment was approaching. and that whatever happened next would change everything forever. Silence spread across the stars like a held breath, not the fragile silence of fear, but the heavy stillness that followed truth spoken aloud. The fleets remained frozen in their battle lines, weapons powered yet unmoving, ancient enemies staring across the void with uncertainty, etched into every signal and shield. Inside the Atlas, the light faded slowly, the sigils beneath the princess's skin dimming from blinding radiance to a soft, steady glow, like embers that refused to die. Her body sagged at last, strength finally spent, and the soldier caught her fully this time, easing her down against his chest, his armor scraping softly against the deck as he knelt. "Hey!" he whispered, voice breaking. "You did it." Her eyes opened weakly, unfocused at first, then finding him again, always him, a faint smile touching her lips. "No," she murmured. "We did." Around them, the hangar remained utterly still, crew frozen in quiet reverence, not for power or royalty, but for a choice that had reshaped the galaxy without a single order being given. The captain stepped forward slowly, lowering his head, not in command, but in respect. "The councils are responding," he said softly. "They acknowledge your claim." A ripple moved through the room, disbelief mixed with awe. The soldier closed his eyes briefly, relief crashing through him so hard it hurt. "They also demand terms," the captain continued. "They are afraid." The princess exhaled, a breath filled with exhaustion and peace. "They should be," she whispered. "Fear is how balance is finally learned." Beyond the viewport, the impossible happened. Fleets powered down one by one, energy signatures dimming, weapons retracting, ancient symbols of war dissolving into neutral light. The galaxy stepped back from the edge, not because it was ordered to, but because it was reminded it could choose otherwise. Medics moved in at last, gentle now, careful not to disturb the fragile moment, scanning her vitals, whispering in awe as readings stabilized instead of collapsing. "She's recovering," one murmured, disbelief thick in their voice. The soldier didn't let go until they promised she would not be taken far, until he saw with his own eyes that she was safe. When they finally lifted her onto a medical gurney, her fingers tightened weakly around his glove, refusing to release him. "You will stay," she whispered, fear flickering once more. Smaller now, human. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere." Hours later, when the Atlas drifted beyond the conflict zone and the stars felt quiet again, he sat beside her in the med bay, armor removed, exhaustion finally claiming him. She slept peacefully now, color warmer beneath her skin, the sigils resting dormant but present, no longer a wound, but a crown waiting to be worn. He watched her breathe, every rise and fall grounding him in a reality he still struggled to believe. A single decision on a dead moon, a single act of refusal, had rewritten fate. When she finally woke, her eyes were clear, steady, no longer hunted. She looked at him and smiled, truly smiled. "My name," she said softly, "is Alaris." He nodded, committing it to memory like a vow. "I'm glad I know it." She studied him for a long moment, then asked quietly, "What will you do now, human soldier?" He thought of the war he had left behind, the orders he had broken, the life he could never return to, then looked back at her. "Whatever comes next," he said simply, "I'll face it with you." Something ancient and gentle settled between them, not romance bound by destiny, not obligation shaped by law, but partnership forged in choice. Outside the med bay, the galaxy began to change, treaties rewritten not by fear but recognition, councils forced to accept that power no longer belonged only to bloodlines or fleets, but to those willing to stand between cruelty and silence. Alaris rose slowly from the bed, steady now, no longer fragile, and extended her hand to him. "Then walk with me," she said, "not as my shield." He took her hand without hesitation, standing beside her, equal, unafraid, but as my proof. And together, a human soldier and an alien princess stepped forward into a future the galaxy had never planned for. where destiny was no longer imposed, but chosen